As leaders across Africa plot future scenarios and come up with developmental programs, the component of the youth is important because ultimately the youth form the next generation of labour. Now, Kenya's Institute of Economic Affairs, also a research and policy think tank, they've launched a youth fact book to analyse Kenya's looming youth bulge in order to determine the impact as well as the possible futures that Kenya could face over the next decade or so. Joining us now is Katindi Sivi Njonjo, Programme Officer at the Futures Programme at the Economic Institute in Kenya. Thanks so much for your time there. High unemployment is a problem in Kenya for the youth. The growing youth demographic is a challenge. As Kenya deliberates Vision 2030, what's the component that's going to focus on the youth?
The youth are really unemployed in Kenya, and the fact that they're joining the market, the labor market, at about 500,000 every year. So that's a big challenge because they're growing at 25%, and the employment creation is at about 19%. So there's a deficit every year. And so we have to think about a way in which we are going to improve on the rate at which we create employment.
Everybody's talking about entrepreneurship. Yeah. Let's encourage young people to start their businesses, to create jobs within their own context. But it's not easy tangibly, on a financing level, on a skills level. What would be the practical steps needed for young people?
I think we have to think about short-term and long-term measures. The long-term measures, one includes the educating young people so that they can be able to create their own jobs. And that means making sure we invest in very high skill labor force. But also in the short term, we have to think about ways in which young people, especially those who do not have skills, can be able to get technical skills to be able to start small businesses. And the reason why we are talking about a balance is because the bulge is growing at a very fast rate, and it's going to be, the unemployment levels are going to really rise very high.
Give us an assessment of the skills deficit and the quality of education. I just gave a statistic here that says South Africa, 87% of the schools are dysfunctional. A lot of the schools can't produce school leavers who have the skills necessary for the kind of economy we have. What's the situation in Kenya?
We have about 42% of Kenyans are below the age of 14, and another 35% are between 15 and 35. So there's basically a very high demand for lower primary education, and the government is providing free primary education. But I think with a growing population of young people, what's going to be happening in the next few years is that they're going to have a lot of demand for high school education. Right now, the transition rates from primary to secondary school are at 50%. So there is a 50% that is not getting high school education. That means you have a high number that is semi-illiterate, and if you're creating a modern economy, it means that you'll have a very big population that is not able to work in that economy. So we need to actually increase the numbers that go to high school, and we also need to increase the numbers that are able to access university and other technical colleges. And so that number needs to grow faster than it is growing right now. Yeah.
As we transition, a big issue is social security, how those who are leaving school can't find jobs can be provided with safety nets, how those who are starting school, going to have a 12-year schooling career, how they'll be catered for in the interim. What does social security mean by way of government programs, the costs, and what society and civil society ought to be doing?
I think government, first of all, has got to think about investing quite a lot of money on the social sector. So issues of reproductive health and issues of education, that's the place we need the highest investment. But because the dependency ratios are quite high, and so that has got to be looked into. And that will take a while. And it means that for now, the country will not be able to grow at a very fast rate because they really need to put investments in place that will be able to take care of these young people so that they can get the skills they need to provide their own employment and be able to save and build the economy. So we have to invest right now if we are thinking about the future of this country. Of course, it has to be an issue also of civil society. They have to think about ways in which they also meaningfully include young people in participation. Yes.
I mean, Vision 2030, ultimately Kenya wants to grow at 10% to eventually become a mid-tier economy like the ones we see in Malaysia, South Korea, that sort of thing.
Yes.
We've just heard from somebody in South Africa saying the starting point is a common value system as a nation. What is that ethos that's going to drive business, government and civil society in Kenya?
I think the first thing we need to do is to realize that a lot of that growth, first of all, looks like needs to come from tourism and manufacturing sector. But with a growing number of young people, what that means is that young people, because of high crime rates, it means that that growth cannot be achieved if you have young unemployed people that are not able to work, because then they sabotage the economy. And so there's going to be need and young people cannot ascribe to values that are investing or cooperate with government or other people without, when they feel marginalized, when they feel excluded, when they feel disenfranchised. And so there's a really big need for them to feel like they're part of this growth and part of this economy. And we have to think about a way of integrating them so that they begin to feel like a part of it. And that means that they have to be educated, it means that they have to be employed, it means that they have to also feel that they benefit from the things that are going on in the country, because the exclusion is not good for them.